Hey, what's up, everybody? We are live here on site, on location at Mother's Cupboard. And of course, Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, proud partner of Mother's Cupboard here in the community. And so, being your host, Dan Tortora, every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on mixlr.com, youtube.com, and facebook.com, all / Wake Up Call DT. Coach Hicks has been with me for many years, and Coach Hicks has been here at Mother's Cupboard more recently as we have these sit-down conversations with Coach. So happy to have you back, Coach.
Good morning. Glad to be here. And a good breakfast.
So we got our breakfast set here this morning. Coach got like a deconstructed omelet. I got ham, cheese, and broccoli, and he got eggs with ham. So we kind of had the same breakfast, just done differently. And we're here today to talk about supporting local and supporting the community. We're also here to talk about Mother's Cupboard and to talk about Syracuse Football and Realignment. So, Coach, you've been coming to Mother's Cupboard even before we were doing this. So what makes you come out here?
I'm a community guy. I'm not really a chain guy. So I figure if you live in a community and you should give back to the same community. And that's the way I feel about the great fans here in Syracuse. Whether they're alums or not, they come to the university, they come to the games because it's a community spirit. You talk to people, one of the hardest places in the country to play is inside the dome because the people love to be there, the atmosphere and what they love. So, and might be the best breakfast in town.
I don't think there's any doubt that this is the best breakfast. I've been looking for a place to get an omelet. There used to be a place back in the day that was down the road, and I want to shout out Anna Maria's because they were always great. But Mother's Cupboard has found a way to give me my ham, broccoli, and cheese omelet. And Coach can attest to this. I try to change it up and get different things, but I think I've gotten this the last 3 times that we've been here because I love it. And even when I'm out of town, I think about that down in Disney. I'm like, when I come back home, this is what I'm getting. So happy to be here supporting. Shout out to Pete Green and the entire team here at Mother's Cupboard, 3709 James Street in Syracuse. I consider them not a restaurant in Syracuse, not a business in Syracuse, but a staple of Central and Upstate New York. If you come through Syracuse and you're here for an hour, come over to Mother's Cupboard. If you're here for a few days, come over. You come in for a game, make sure you're spending some time here at Mother's Cupboard. We'd love to see you out here. So, looking at building bridges in the community, it's something that you've been working to do with alumni and whatnot. Building bridges to you has been important. It's important to me, and relationships are paramount. So I'd love to hear you talk about that a little bit.
Well, in college football, the whole process starts with recruiting. You've got to have the right players. And recruiting starts with relationships you start building, and you start building those as 8th, 9th, 5th graders.
Yeah.
And some of those relationships get built because the relationships that are built with other people that, suggest taking a look at Syracuse or suggest giving a visit to Syracuse. And once you develop relationships, nobody cares how much you know about any one subject until they realize how much you care about them as an individual.
Yeah.
And if you can operate that way, build relationships, care about people, the other things take care of themselves.
You've said that. You said that before. The importance of nobody cares about how much you know until they know about how much you care. And in all this time in doing business, and we're heading toward my 10-year anniversary of Dan Tortora Broadcast Media, and everything that I've always lived on is relationships. We wouldn't be sitting here today if not for relationships. So for you to continue to build that, you value having a meal with somebody. And we were here with John Abdo a few days ago, and you know him, I didn't know him, and we got to sit down and get to know each other. Just how much you value a meal in the community with somebody.
Well, if you're willing to break bread with people, you know that there's got to be some good that's going to come out of it. Everybody's got to eat. There's a difference in sitting down and having a meal and running through a drive-thru and just grabbing something quick because you're just hungry. Sitting down and having a meal with somebody is kind of a value system of that you're going to spend some time with a like-minded individual enjoying their company, and hopefully either you get better that day or they get better from being around each other. And it doesn't matter if it's business or sports or football. The amount of time spent together where you focus on one thing gets everybody around you to be more productive.
Yeah, it's that approach to life of giving back and wanting to help each other. I mean, my grandparents, and I say this reminds me of my my grandmas and my grandfathers, because that's what we did. We went to church on a Sunday at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we went to breakfast right after. So around this time, we would be having breakfast, sitting down together, and it would be my grandparents, my parents, and I, and then it would change, and it would grow. And I remember how it started with my grandparents, my parents, and I, and then it moved into the people that my mom and my grandparents had known, and then their friends, and we started having breakfast at a certain point where they had to put us in the back room because there was like 14 of us. So our table kept getting bigger and bigger, just because we would go to church and then break bread with these people that were in the community. And so I thought it was great that our table of 4 became like a table of 12 really quick. And I mean, that was something that you do for years, is you just keep that connection together.
Well, everybody talks about what goes on within the world nowadays, and it seems like a lot of people go back to the one thing that happens is everybody's too busy to have dinner together.
Yeah.
And I understand everybody's busy, but at the same point, shut the cell phone off and sit down and spend 30 minutes together without looking at it every second, and learn how to have conversations again. Having conversations with people.
Go ahead, sorry.
Having conversations with people again can solve a lot of issues that you can't get done through text.
Yeah, no, and you can't. Message, and it's funny about shutting the phone off, as we had one go flying, but yeah, I mean, there's so much to be said about that. Like you said, shut the phone off. We have a rule down in Florida when I go visit my other parents. I call them Papa Joe and Mary, my other mom and dad. We have a rule that when we sit down to dinner, we pray together, and there's no electronics at the table. So the TV's off usually, or it would be on mute in the corner. There's no cell phones, there's no tablets, there's no laptops, and we just talk about what's going on in our lives. We give each other advice, we help each other, we talk about the day, but it's true family time, and it's about an hour to 2 hours where we're not touching a phone. And Andrew said, "Coach, your stories make the meal a great experience." So.
It's kind of hard to keep the phone off in your business, because your business is communication with people. But after that hour, you might have such a great message for the next time you get on for a show.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you a true full circle. So I call him Papa Joe. And so Papa Joe and I and Mary are all having dinner down in St. Augustine. And we were talking, and he's so knowledgeable about so many different things. Horse racing, baseball, football, he just knows a lot. And so we're talking about all this stuff. And we're having these conversations, these hours of just talking about life, talking about sports, and he was giving me way too much credit than I thought I deserved about how knowledgeable he is, and I was like, I'm nowhere close to you. And so every time we talked, he was challenging me to get better, to know more, to do more. And I said to him, I go, you want to come on the show? And he said, for real? I said, yeah, come on the show, we'll talk, because I love our conversation. And we did it once, and then we did it again, and then before you know it, I looked at him and I said, I want to have you on every week, every Thursday, and it's called Papa Joe. It's Papa Joe's Post, and he's on every Thursday with me. And he said to me, he goes, yeah, let's try college football season. And so we did that. Oh no, we did the NFL, and then we started to branch out. And I said, I want you on every week. And he goes, every week? The hell are we going to talk about? And we, for years now, have done it. But that started at a kitchen table like we are now, with him sitting across from me and me saying to myself, I don't want to be selfish and keep Papa Joe all to myself. I feel like people listening to him, like he can make a difference, and I feel like he's so knowledgeable, and the conversations are an hour and they flow like 10 minutes. And now, with all the years that we've been on the show together, the people that respond to him and love him being on, and if he's not on for a week, they want to know where he is. And so, I mean, going off of what you said, there's an entire Thursday segment of my show that was born out of talking at a kitchen table.
Sometimes we get lucky when we find out where we get our wisdom from. And I grew up, my father was much older when I was born. He told me all my life, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. If you listen twice as much as you talk, you'll learn a whole lot of things. So we never know where we get our wisdom from.
No, and it's been incredible, and how God works and how small the world is. Carol Burton just joined the show, and she was the waitress that waited on my whole family, my grandparents, my parents, and I, 3 generations for years. So shout out to Carol, because she was the person that we saw every Sunday morning. Fantastic lady. So to jump into the sports side of where sports meets life, Syracuse football. You've been around it forever. I've been around it my whole life. There's a lot of air of realignment, which we'll talk about. But as of right now, the schedule is ahead of us. It's 2022. Purdue is coming to the Dome. Notre Dame is coming to the Dome. The first game of the season is a conference game against Louisville, and I believe 5 of the first 6 games are at home.
It's a very challenging schedule. We play one of the toughest schedules in the conference, actually one of the toughest schedules in the country. But by being it, anytime we have a chance to play in the Dome, it gives us an advantage. I know I coached Dwight Freeney, and he had an article in Sports Illustrated one time. They were interviewing a lot of pro players about the toughest place to play. And Dwight Freeney said, by far, you get people in the Dome on 3rd down, they start shaking the car keys, and Dwight comes out, sack, game over. But being at home in those first 5 games, some stiff competition, a lot of excitement around Syracuse football right now. We had a really, really good spring practice. We've had some great additions to the coaching staff. There's a buzz, a little bit of buzz right now.
Jason Beck and Robert and I, coming from Virginia.
Tremendous coaches.
Jason, and for those of you that don't know, Jason Beck, the quarterback coach, and Robert and I is the offensive coordinator, but he's also taking roles with like tight ends and whatnot. You said tremendous coaches. What do you like about, they were part of Bronco Mendenhall's staff, and when he stepped down in the offseason in Virginia, it was open season for his coaching staff, and Syracuse ended up pulling in Coach and I and Coach Beck.
Well, where I say, offensive coordinator and a quarterback coach having been already together on the same page with that system. Your quarterback's an extension of the offensive coordinator on the field. But they're proven. They have a proven track record. If you look at the stats from what Virginia did in the passing game last year, if you look at the improvement at the quarterback at Virginia and the quarterbacks that Coach Beck has worked with in the past, they have a proven track record. They have a system that has worked, proven that it works. They have a system that produces yardage, and like I say, 6-7 times a year, we're in a climate-controlled environment inside. So let's put the ball in the air and light it up a little bit.
Having a change in the coaching staff and have it on the offensive side, where defensively there's been some improvement, what are you excited about?
Moving to change. We've been good enough on defense the last couple of years to produce 2 or 3 more victories, and we just haven't been able to seal the deal. And 3rd and shorts or extended drive, big plays of the game to get a field goal out of it. So it's just holding on to the ball longer, in the ACC right now, there's so many teams that are good on offense that you need to control the football yourself, hold on to it longer. It's hard to score without it. So the longer you hold on to it and play good defense, you got a chance.
Coach Hicks has been around the world of football for a very, very long time, and it begs the question of where does Sean Tucker stack up in running backs that you've seen in history?
That I've seen or coached?
That you've coached, that you've physically been around.
We had two great backs all my years at NC State. I mean, absolutely great backs. Tremaine Stevens was a second-round pick of the Chargers. Tremendous speed. Built a little bit different than Tucker, but tremendous long speed. We had Rashard Spikes, played for the Cleveland Browns for about 8 or 9 years. Him and Sean Tucker are basically the same people. Tremendously strong, well-built, stout, powerful backs, both with that short burst. Rashard Spikes ran the 55-meter indoor track at NC State. Sean Tucker ran 55 meters indoor track last year here for us at Syracuse. So, explosive and compact. Sean Tucker reminds me a little bit of a back here in DeLon Carter, which we were just talking about earlier. And, DeLon Carter could have had a great pro career. He had an unfortunate hip injury here, non-contact hip injury, very similar to the Bo Jackson hip injury. And he recovered from it, played his senior year here, got drafted high, played 2-3 years in the pros, but the hip was never the same. But those are they're very similar backs, and as far as tough yardage, good vision, physical, but if they see a crack, they also got the breakaway to turn a 3-yard gain into a 30.
Hey, and Tucker, what I've seen with him is from his first season to his second to now, and he's technically a sophomore in the world of COVID because he was a double freshman, so he's a sophomore now by sports wise, and because you gained your year back, so he was a freshman, then a freshman again with the COVID year, now a sophomore, but 3 years at Syracuse. His body keeps getting better. He keeps getting bigger, he keeps getting stronger, he keeps putting on more muscle, he keeps minimizing his body fat. When you look at body transition, since you're a strength and conditioning guy and you're all about taking care of yourself, what can you say about Sean Tucker's transition from the day he walked in to what he looks like today?
That's why I kind of brought up that he reminds me a lot of DeLon Carter. Because, DeLon was the same way. He came in at 203 and senior year he played at 223. Yeah. And, body fat went down, flexibility improved, muscular strength improved. Part of it's maturity. Just natural maturity. Then a lot of it is, the success that you have in a college strength program where you train year round. And then knowing the importance of self-preservation, especially when you're going to get the ball.
Keenan Hale's out there.
Yeah, especially when you're going to get the ball, 25 or 30 times in a game. Self-preservation is going to cause you to get a little bit bigger and stronger to protect yourself. But, they're doing a nice job with him physically. They're doing a nice job in their strength and conditioning program. He's going to be fun to watch. And I would have enjoyed coaching him. He would have been fun.
Yeah, and I think, and to go to that before we get into realignment and whatnot, Coach Hicks hanging out with myself, Dan Tortora, Wake Up Call, on-site, on location, live at Mother's Cupboard. We are here every single month in what I call from Mother's Cupboard to Table, where we break bread with people in our community, and we link sports we link local sports to local business, to a local business in a local show here. So we're happy to keep it all in central and upstate New York and then spread it out to the world. So we bring it here for you and we share it internationally, and I'm very grateful for all of you that have allowed me the opportunity to reach beyond Syracuse and upstate New York and central New York. And Coach Hicks is one of the best here. That's why he's a constant picture that you get to see here, a constant face and a constant voice. So Coach, here from Mother's Cupboard, you had a story about the Ben Schwartzwalder Trophy that you were telling off the air, and it's a perfect segue into realignment because of all the mixing and matching and how Syracuse's rivalry with West Virginia is lost now because of realignment, Big 12 and the ACC. So I would love for you to tell the Schwartzwalder Trophy story that you told me, because it's a really cool thing, and it's right here in Central New York.
Well, we were talking about rivals and this and that, and who the rivals are in Syracuse. And, one of our biggest rivals is West Virginia, even though we don't play them consistently anymore. And Ben Schwartzwalder, who won the national championship here, great coach from West Virginia, war hero, paratrooped into Normandy. So when we played West Virginia, they named it years ago the Schwartzwalder Trophy, as to which team actually got the physical possession of the trophy.
Yeah.
Well, we'd lost to West Virginia for 3 or 4 years, and we didn't have it. Coach Marone comes in, and we're going to play the game at West Virginia. Well, Coach Schwartzwalder's wife, Reggie Schwartzwalder, was in a nursing home here in town, and Coach Marone had tried to explain the significance to the players of the Schwartzwalder Trophy. And we kind of led up to it all week. So we're getting on the bus to go to the airport to go to the game. And everybody starts kind of mumbling and whispering because we turned out and we didn't start heading to the airport. We weren't sure where we were going. We kept driving. Next thing you know, we pull up into the Onondaga Veterans Cemetery. And there's a player that played for Coach Schwartzwalder standing out there to meet us, Jim Jerome. So the team got out. We walked out around Coach Schwartzwalder's grave. Jim Jerome shared the story about Coach Schwartzwalder.
Yeah.
Coach Marone told the team that we were going to go up and beat West Virginia. We were physically going to get the trophy. When we flew back that night, we were going to go to the rest home, and the captains were going to take the Schwartzwalder Trophy to Reggie Schwartzwalder. And we pulled off a big upset. We physically got the trophy. We came back, the captains took it to the nursing home, and we gave it to Reggie Schwartzwalder. And the Schwartzwalder Trophy has not left Syracuse since, because we beat them at the Dome the following year, and we beat them in a bowl game. And
then another bowl game, and then another bowl game.
And we beat them in a bowl game, and then a bowl game. And now the Schwartzwalder Trophy has a permanent spot in the archives in the lobby of our football office.
I'll tell you something, I've never seen a team leave a stadium quicker than West Virginia leaves when at the Camping World Bowl when they got beat. Now, obviously, I got to know a lot of players over the years and friends with a lot of you wonderful gentlemen that have come through Central New York and represented us well. And they said to me that everyone, like the first New Era Pinstripe Bowl, then the second Pinstripe Bowl, then going to the Camping World Bowl, they said they talked so much trash. They didn't shut up. They're on social media. These West Virginia players just keep going and going and going. And then Syracuse would beat them, and they'd make an excuse, and it was this and that, whatever. And so they basically, I think Jerome Smith said it to me. He goes, "How many times do we have to beat you before you shut up?" And at the Camping World Bowl, I'll never forget, I was in the press box. So I'm upstairs in the press box, and I got a long history with the Citrus Bowl, which is now Camping World Bowl. And I'm up there in the press box, and the media person comes up to us, touches us media on the shoulder, and a few people at a time, and he said, "Hey, if you want to talk to West Virginia," there's like 12 minutes left or whatever, he goes, "You might want to go down, maybe 8 minutes, you might want to go downstairs now because they're trying to leave." Because they knew they were going to lose. So they had the bus running, heating up, and the players and the coaches, everybody was trying to run out of there to not do any interviews. So if you believe in the rivalry, not only do they talk trash, but when they get beat, they don't even want to stay to have the media ask them about the game against Syracuse, which is a huge ode to Syracuse. And I know that there's been some trying times in football, but when it comes to Syracuse and West Virginia, the student athletes have literally ran out of arenas to not have to talk to the media.
Well, as you mentioned, you can pop up and see some of the people that have joined the show.
And Mrs. Dungy's right there, Cindy's up there.
Yeah, I would love to give a little shout out to any of the guys that I've coached that are on the show, to any of the guys that I've met that I didn't coach that are on the show. The relationships and what y'all guys mean to me will be hard to explain, but they are the reasons that the Schwartzwalder Trophy's back here. The legacy of Ben Schwartzwalder, the pride, and the effort that was put into bringing it back. But all that trash talking, real players know you talk with your pads. And at the end of the game, the number of hits you took, it quietens them down really quick. So you speak with your pads, Keep your head down. You play every snap as hard as you can. You look up at the end of the game, the scoreboard's usually in your favor if you do it that way.
And the last time they beat West Virginia, I was there. First question to Eric Dungy, and it was the thing that the paper had. My dad framed it and sent it to me because there's a picture of Dungy crying. And it was my question. I asked him, I said, and I had interviewed Dungy for a long time, and when I finally got to talk to him after his time at Syracuse, I said, you have no idea how many dark days you got me through by how you stood up to the media, how you stood up to the teams you played against, how you stood up to the world, because that man always took just unwarranted criticism, and I still love him, and he's a dog, and I hope the XFL, the NFL, I hope everybody pays attention to him because I love him, and his whole family. So Eric, in that, I asked him the question, I said, not just right now, but in your 4 years of hearing it, and all your injuries, and the losing seasons, and never going to a bowl until now, and taking all of this criticism and all this hate, how does this moment feel to culminate not this season, but 4 years? And he started crying. And my dad called me after, and it was funny after because people knew that. And if you said, oh, when Dungy cried, and I'm in the airport, and I said what my dad had said to me, my dad called me up, and my dad doesn't say much, and he said, he goes, I find it really interesting. He said, of all the linemen and all the linebackers, of all the hits that Dungy's taken, of everybody that's gotten after him, and all those big old guys that knocked him down, he goes, my son's the only one that made him cry. And I said it for good reason. And then we did a Project Dungy thing with Cindy and Matt and Emma and the late Tim Dungy, God bless him in heaven. And then we did it with Eric in the last part. And I got to tell you, that West Virginia win that meant a lot to me because I lived in Florida. I covered the Florida Tuskers of the UFL in the Citrus Bowl. I was down in Florida when we got announced that we were going to the Camping World Bowl, so I drove there, and I did an on-site video of the Camping World Bowl, the only media standing there in the parking lot where I interviewed John Gruden. So there was so much history for me there with John Gruden and the Tuskers and the Camping World and the Citrus Bowl and everything we got to do, and then for Eric Dungy and Mo Neal and that entire team that finally got to a bowl game and then to win it, that's sitting in the room in that moment. Not only did Dungy cry, but everything inside of me was emotional that day because he deserved it and everybody deserved it. And Floyd Little and I talked after the fact outside, and Deborah, his wife, beautiful, wonderful woman and a beautiful soul, she was sitting there on one of the four-wheelers. She was sitting on the back there just kind of relaxing and whatnot. Everything about that day between Syracuse and Florida and everything in that moment in West Virginia, it was like a 10-layer lasagna for me to see that, and I will always remember the day that Dungy and the team brought us all back, and I love you guys for it. You guys know that.
Well, you mentioned how tough Dungy is. I was on the staff that recruited Dungy, and I've been around a lot of players. He has, people talk about the it factor. You're not sure what it is, but he has it, the it factor.
The dog.
But, what your dad's saying, big guys hit him. Tough guys, you don't make anybody cry in football.
Yeah.
Eric Dungy's one of the toughest people. You're never going to make him. He released that emotion because he was happy.
Yeah.
Not because anybody did anything to him. And the way Eric is and the kind of leader he was and how much he cared about the program, his teammates and the coaching staff, he was more happy for the people around him than he was for himself. And that's what made him part of the legacy he still has here, is he made the people around him better because he thought 1 + 1 was 3. He got guys with him on Saturdays and late at night and all, and they would watch film and they'd do extra work. And the good ones are all that way. Shamarko Thomas, Ryan Nassif, Art and Chandler Jones. Those guys get people around them to do more than they would do by themselves. And it leads to being a better program as far as winning, but it also leads to those guys are friends for life.
Nate Trout,
kicking machine.
One of the greatest ever in Syracuse history.
And's got a daughter who's a soccer playing machine. And I follow these guys, and I was not fortunate enough to coach Trout, but I was fortunate enough to meet him and the group of guys he played with. And you want to talk about real football? Real football players.
Well, and he is actually the mentor of Brady Denneberg, the new kicker who's also played quarterback, who's coming to Syracuse very soon here. And I got to do an exclusive with Brady because Nate got to me ahead of time and said, you need to check out this kicker. He's like, he plays quarterback for us. Brady Denneberg, in one of the games en route to the state championship in Florida that they played in, Brady ran the ball twice. Like, literally ran the ball twice. Then threw a pass to set himself up for the game-winning field goal.
It's not a bad day's work.
No, and who do you know that can do something like that? And Nate and I have a story. Nate didn't know this when he was playing, but I was at a game with my dad because he used to bring me to the Dome all the time. We were sitting up in the 300 level, and we were in the corner, and Nate was going for a field goal. And I remember just being there, and I screamed out in the moment, and I didn't know it was going to be quiet. And I think I screamed, I was like, I love you, Nate! Because I really wanted him to get it, and I didn't think he got the respect he deserved. And I screamed out to Nate Trout, and it was like dead silent in the Dome. And now Nate and I, when I go down to Florida, we do shows together. We've done a bunch of stuff together, and he's become a friend. And to me, it's like special teams doesn't get the respect it deserves. One of my favorite people and I can't believe that we're friends, Nate. I mean, it's an honor for me, well beyond anything that I give to you that you think. Like, it's my honor.
I feel the same way. I met him at a reunion and feel like I've recruited and coached him and have a lot of mutual respect.
He's the nicest guy. He's the nicest guy. Just an awesome guy. Truly bleeds orange to this day, and he's just a good human being. And I love it. He's a salt of the earth guy, and he always treats everybody he's in the presence of as more important than him. Like, he always makes you feel like you're a king or a queen. And so shout out to Nate, because you're a good man. So with that being said, college realignment, to wrap things up. You and I have a lot of similar views. I've shared them over the weeks. I've actually been sharing them for a year since Oklahoma and Texas made the move. Things that I thought were going to come down the pike have started to flow through. There's things that I felt would happen, and I'm seeing it. I'm sticking by my guns here, but I'm not going to load the question. So what are your thoughts? Oklahoma and Texas, the head of the Big 12 gets cut off, goes to the SEC. The head of the Pac-12 gets cut off, USC and UCLA goes to the Big 10. So those two conferences didn't take teams. They took the head of the conferences. The SEC's been sitting, or the ACC's been sitting in silence. So of the five powers, one has done nothing, gained nothing, lost nothing. The other two are reeling. The Big 12 made a move. The Pac-12 is going to make a move. And then here we are with the Big 10 and the SEC looking like they are where it is.
Well, in this whole scenario, Syracuse could be one of the most fortunate programs that there is, because our athletic director, John Wildhack, probably knows as much about TV rights and conference schedules and conference alliance than anyone, because that's what he did when he was with ESPN. He makes the joke that ESPN's got such a great contract with the ACC right now that he wished he knew who the guy was that did that, and he was the guy that did it for ESPN, so we wish we'd have had him on our side a little earlier. But, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. Nobody's privy to the real information that's going on within all the meetings. A lot hinges on what's going to happen with Notre Dame and their TV contract. And a lot hinges on TV markets and where they want to be relevant as far as that's concerned. It's in the newspaper, so everybody sees the SEC and the Big Ten, the type of TV money they're throwing at their conference members is game changing. It's a complete financial windfall for those teams. But as I've said many a time, and anybody at the university will say, we're very, very lucky that the guy sitting in those meetings, this is what he did for a living until we were lucky enough to get him to run our shop.
Well, if Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and company, if they leave for the SEC, what does Syracuse do? Can the ACC survive that? Do you beg the Big Ten? Do you go to the American? What do you do?
Like I say, nobody knows exactly what happened. But you know, if one leaves and you stay, it's just like players. You know, next player up. You know, the mantra in football is next guy up. So if somebody leaves, you were fourth, you move up to first or second, then the pressure's on to keep playing that way. We saw what Cincinnati did last year, winning a conference and winning 10 or 11 games.
And I was there, and I love Coach Hicks.
Winning a conference, winning 10 or 11 games can set up anything to happen and anything to change. So all you have to do is just keep playing the game. You play to the final whistle. Sometimes you have to go to overtime. Players I coached, if they're on here now, know that they used to get really upset with me when we'd finish a long run. We'd do, 16, we'd do 20, 24, 30, 110s, and all of a sudden I'd say overtime. We'd line up and do some more. You just never know. Just keep playing.
If you had a crystal ball, what do you think? The realignment. I have my thoughts. I have my theories. I had how the Big 12 would have died. I now have how the Big 12 has rebirthed itself. I have thoughts on, I did a whole college realignment map where I showed you where the conferences are, the regions that are left open, and what I think will happen, and why I think the American and the Sun Belt will survive, because they're taking a page out of the SEC book. So what are your thoughts?
Completely off the record thoughts just from listening and reading. I think the SEC will get probably our top 2 teams in the ACC. I think there's going to be a next tier of prominent teams that will end up in the Big Ten, and I think Syracuse is going to be probably deeply in those conversations with Rutgers jumping years ago. That Syracuse has a chance, but again, it all depends on TV, Notre Dame, and a lot of other factors. But the top of our conference right now may end up in the SEC, and the next level of our conference that has visibility, TV, status, and national prominence in certain areas may end up in the Big Ten.
And the irony of all those moves is if Syracuse were to end up in the Big Ten with Penn State and Notre Dame were to end up in the Big Ten as well, it would beg the question, and if the Big East had done it right years ago, would any of this have happened? Because all these years later, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Syracuse would be in the same place.
Conversations started happening around that stuff in 2000 when I got here.
Yeah. So, for Coach Hicks, for myself, Dan Tortora, for Mother's Cover, Pete Green, and the team, we thank you for being here. 3709 James Street in Syracuse, New York. Open 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. every single day. And Coach Hicks and I can show you that we have plate cleaned. I just dumped my toast, but we have totally plate cleaned.
I just saw on the bottom there, Keenan Hale, who now is a lobbyist in D.C. and the vice president of our Syracuse Football Club.
Yeah.
And if you don't you better keep an eye on him quick, because he might be the president one day. Keenan Hale, class act.
Keenan Hale, good guy. And Nate Trout, love you back, and we love you all. We appreciate you all as always. For Coach Hicks and for myself, this has been From Mother's Cover to Table. Stay tuned every single month. From Mother's Cover as Wake Up Call brings you an exclusive connection to the community that you won't find anywhere else. And as always, God bless, no stress, and the best.